We've got our daughter, our friend, our little child. I don't know.
We've always grown up wanting a tall, dark, and handsome man.
Yes. So
there's always the perception of the yellow-bone privilege.
I was just the dark one. I felt like I was the swan.
thank you. I acknowledge how you see me, but it's unfortunate that the world doesn't see me in that way. A warm welcome to everyone watching Sister Talk. We're back at it at the table today with my sisters. Lillian, how are you today?
I'm good. Hi,
Great.
everyone.
Yeah. Jax.
Hello, how are you?
Auntie Jackie there for you. And we have a special guest once again. We've got our daughter, our friend, our little child. I don't know what to call you, Denise, but you're like your daughter. You're everything to us. So this is Denis Muhambi. We're really pleased to have you today. I think when I look at Denise, I just see so much because she has also been recognized by Forbes as one of the upcoming 30-year-olds in Africa. And I think you're just such a trendsetter. So we're so pleased to have you today. But the conversation we're bringing to the table this day is really about colorism and just the dynamics in terms of how we perceive or how we are perceived to be as women in terms of, and not just women, I think men as well, the light skin tones, the dark skin tones, and how that resonates with not only our children, but us as adults as well. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. What does that mean for you guys? You know, colorism, what do you take from that?
You just said something interesting about, how the perception around women and men. I suppose for men it's negative because we've always grown up wanting a tall, dark, and handsome man.
Yes.
So
we never saw tall like
letters. No, not at all. Yeah. So maybe that's reversed for men. I don't know. But it was just an interesting observation. But
so if there are any men out there who have a comment on this, please feel free to share. Or women. Yeah. But so Denise, what's your take?
Well, on my end, there's always the perception of the yellow-bone privilege.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know, it became a thing. And I only realized it, I think, when growing up. And it's like, oh my gosh, she's so light-skinned, she's so pretty. And then, for me, when I became a mom, things like that really started to upset me because my daughters are not as light as me. Mm-hmm. And I've got friends and family of mixed race as well and the likes. And I feel the societal pressure in terms of complexion, ultimately it stems from homes.
Yeah.
It comes from, I think, women who already might not be pleased with the way that they look and they want to change and they impose their own views on complexion onto their children. And this is what I think even stems where racism stems from, because kids don't see color until we teach them about color. So for me, I think it's the moms.
So all isms. Yeah. If you think about it, it's all the isms that are out there. I want to respond to what you have to say, but Auntie Jackie, for me, when I think about the conversations we've had about colorism, I know this is something that resonates with you. What does that mean to you in terms of colorism and how people are viewed?
Well, I think one of the things that you've mentioned, Denise, is that it comes from home. You don't know that you are dark until somebody mentions to you that you are dark. You just see yourself as a child. So growing up for me, I saw myself through other people's eyes, and that was around color. And it may sound so abstract when we're talking about it, but this was a reality for me. Mm-hmm. When I reflected now, it was an area of pain, actually. The fact that you were regarded as dark compared to another one. Because we all look, I think if you see us here, we've got different shades of darkness. And I think I was just the dark one. I felt like I was the swan. Oh, is it the ugly duckling? because of the fact of color, because people would always be comparing you, the scale to say, oh, she's so pretty, she's light. Oh, but Wakato Zani, you were so dark. What do you look after? You know what I mean? Like they won't say you're ugly, but they would certainly make you feel that you're not beautiful.
So I think the world really, has a lot to say in terms of how we are viewed, and how we view color. But for me, until, when you look at just the color dynamics in terms of how we raise our children and how we want to empower them, especially around, was that a prominent issue for you when you were raising your kids, or even when you were looking at other, surrounding relationships? What are your perceptions about that?
Yeah, well, you know what? As a parent, your child is beautiful. And I think there's a joke around that. You just see so much magic and beauty in your child, regardless of their complexion. So it is not likely to come from the parent, but I could be wrong. I'm not sure. But it normally comes from people around you. They could be family members. They could be friends. They could be just, people within the community. That's where it comes from. And as a parent, you are very, very protective of your child when, that narrative starts, I think it's there's more awareness now, but I think as we were having our children, the awareness was not really there. And there wasn't enough to go with to say to people, wait a minute, it's not okay for you to be talking about complexion in such a negative manner, but now I think it's now out there, and this is why we grew up with old men using ambi.
Don't start the ambi conversation. I know. Oh my gosh, that's a real one right there.
In our family.
Until hold that thought. We have to take a quick break. So stay tuned for more of Sister Talk.
Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls. The best thing in the world. I never trade you for anything. Hey, confidence when y'all step up on the scene. She not time for us, but nothing but no real. Nobody biz and peace of mind, I got this so she free. Like river water, down the stream flowing to the sea. Tonight she might turn the place on fire. Fire brigade them off it that they've no retire. Yeah, but tell them send me papa made that prayer forever. Yeah, a happy time when we desire. Yeah, yeah. And cause you're beautiful. Yeah, you're beautiful. Tonight I might fall in love, depending on how you hold me. I'm glad that I'm coming down. Can't let no one come control me. Keep dancing and call it love. He's fighting but falling slowly. If ever you are in doubt, remember what mama told you. Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls. You're back against the world. I never trade you for anybody else. Say brown skin girl.
Welcome back to Sister Talk. And we're talking about colorism and just the dynamics that color plays in our lives. And I think so during the conversation, you mentioned a couple of things just across the table. Number one, we talked about just how our children, we really try and empower them so that they don't see color. And Denise, you mentioned that before that, you only see color when someone tells you that there is color. But children are very colorless in how they see the world. There's a friend of mine who was telling me that her 10-year-old daughter said a very profound comment to her. She is dark-skinned, beautiful child, and said to her, Mom, you always tell me that I'm beautiful, but it's unfortunate that the world does not see me in the same way. She's 10 years old. She's telling her mom, that thank you, I acknowledge how you see me, but it's unfortunate that the world doesn't see me in that way. And I think it really stems from the point, if anyone has seen the viral tweet that was showing this woman soaking in a tub full of, I don't know what kind of, chemicals she was using. Did you see that? Mm-hmm. And they were literally peeling off the melanin. They were not even peeling off. They were just taking something and and it was just coming off. The brown was coming off. Mm-hmm. And underneath, you could actually see the tenderness of her skin. And it just really shows to us how big of an issue this colorism is. But I'm going to throw it out there and just say, Auntie Jackie, you kind of touched on the fact that this has been something that has been profound for you. Tell us about your experience.
Well, I actually didn't go into a bathtub full of chemicals when I was growing up, but I did do. But in my youngness, I did something similar. I literally went and I took a dombo, and I was actually trying to wash off the darkness, and I wanted to be light, and I could swear I was seeing myself getting lighter, and I remember I would put, Vaseline, and I would think that I was like shining and I was looking lighter. That was the pressure that I had at the time to want to be light, because we were living we live in a world where beauty is defined by color. That hasn't gone away even up to now. And I think for me, it was real. I did that. If I had a bathtub of chemicals, who knows what I would have been able to do.
I think also another thing that we really should look into is the world is commercial, right?
Yeah.
And women are vulnerable.
Yeah.
And there's people out there who are going to capitalize on the fact that they'll continue to harp on your inadequacies, in quotation marks again, where you'll be made to feel that you need to look a certain type of way, you need to be a certain type of shape, your hair needs to be a certain way. And I think as women, we need to be able to free ourselves from that, but also be each other's keepers. Because if we're not each other's keepers and we continue to downplay certain skin tones or we have a perception of a person because of their color. I mean, for me, I find it as a derogatory statement when someone constantly wants to say to you, oh no, you have certain privilege simply because you're light-skinned. And I'm like, no, but I also have to work equally as hard as any other woman out there, to earn my place at any table, So until we get to a point where we're each other's keepers and we promote and encourage, and compliment one another, no matter what color we are, we're not going anywhere.
So Denise, I think you mentioned something quite profound and how people have given you that feedback. But just to be devil's advocate here, do you not at least get the door opened because of your skin color? Not that the conversations will change, but just the fact that someone is open to having a conversation with you. Do you not see that as what then becomes light-skinned privilege?
Well, I see that more, I think, when people are trying to sell things to me, because then the assumption is light-skinned people have money, which is ridiculous. So I don't know. It's always the salesperson trying to get into your pocket more than anything else. But I think I'm that person where, for me, the way my mom raised me was you always need to earn your spot. And yes, there definitely are scenarios where you can abuse the privilege, because it is there, where people will want to offer certain things and offer favors simply because you look a certain type of way. But it also comes down to your own values and the type of individual you are. Because yes, there is a shortcut that's there. And unfortunately, society doesn't seem to be wanting to shake it off either. I think if anything, it's becoming an even deeper and darker hole. Where, again, people will get into a bathtub full of bleach because she feels if she now looks a certain way, she's definitely going to be able to tap into those privileges that are there. But again, values and support networks are really important when it comes to stuff like this.
And I think there's a whole big, wide, commercial world that also kind of like takes advantage of.
Absolutely.
Those inadequacies, that are identified.
So let's explore that a bit, Auntie Lil. When we look at advertising, I mean, first that comes to mind is the adverts on Doves, the controversial ones, where this woman is peeling back different layers and she's moving from one shade to another, and ultimately she gets into this white, beautiful person. Well, I mean, I think the outcry, I don't know if we had seen that level of outcry in a very long time. So do you think there's been a shift in terms of how advertisers are now seeing their products being used by dark skin versus light skin? I mean, if you look at the advertising field right now, the landscape.
Because, so I think all I can say is that as an advertiser, or as someone with influence, you always have to be sensitive to, some of these issues that we have in society. And sometimes, people miss it. They just, someone comes up with, a commercial that they think maybe is funny or that they think maybe is effective, and then they just miss the sensitivities, around certain topics. So I think, when you are in that position of influence, you have a responsibility, I think, to be pushing the correct agenda, the correct
message.
It's
And
responsibility that you have.
I think that is a profound statement, because people need to be responsible in terms of how we communicate these issues of colorism. But let's pick up from that in our next segment. So we're going to take a break. Please do not go anywhere. Continue to watch Sister Talk.
When Zosie won Miss Universe, we were all excited. I thought, you know what, we're on to a new chapter, new era. We've fallen in love with who we are, our dark skin and our natural hair. But yesterday, my daughter came from school. She's at a new school. And she's been complaining that she was being bullied by older boys. She's in grade 5 and they are like 12 years old in grade 7. Well, the first day she was like, they said we're poor. They think we're poor because we don't have a car. And then yesterday, she told her grandmother she wanted to transfer. So I eventually sat her down and I found out they'd said she was dark. Like they were comparing their hands, their elbows with hers. And they said to her, you're very dark, you're not pretty. So I got up in the morning and I was like, I need to speak to the headmistress. And obviously because of the allegations that we were poor, that were made, I thought, no, I need to put on my wig. I cut my hair and I don't wear my wigs anymore. But today I was like, no, if they think we're poor, then I need to put on my expensive Brazilian wig. So they know we're not poor, and so that we can solve this story. So at the end of the day, I'm just disappointed that we have little boys that still think that light-skinned people are more beautiful than dark-skinned girls. And it is my job as a mom to make sure that my daughter gets it ingrained in her that being a brown-skinned girl is a blessing and that she's beautiful no matter what everybody else thinks.
Welcome back to Sister Talk. And we're talking about colorism, and our guest today is Denis Muhambi. So good to have you again, Denis. Yeah. But I think one of the key things that we're picking up from the conversation before is that we were talking about doves and the advert. Auntie Jackie, you were saying that, there's a balance between colorism and racism?
Yes, the thing is, when I look at the Doves advert, because it's racism. I consider that racism. But colorism is actually coming from your own community. And I think that's much more painful when you're having that discrimination happening within your own people. I think I actually had this, this phrase that I was too dark to be black. I was too dark to be black. I felt I was too, because when I'm amongst black people, I felt that I was too dark to be black. So the normal, yes, I was darker than the accepted level of color of a black person. Because if you, for instance, until you mentioned earlier on that you were like average, you kind of consider yourself in the average, not light, not dark, that's like acceptable. But then there is a level of color of darkness that becomes almost offensive in the black community because you're too dark. So you're too dark to even be a black person.
So that, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I if you've gone to other parts of the world, you'll see people who are non-African, of African descent, but who are as dark as what you're describing. And I think those issues of racism and colorism are even prevalent in other societies. I know Indian culture, the lighter you are, the more, especially for women, the more appealing you are as well. So I don't think it's really about just African culture, but I think it's widespread across. Very interesting stuff. But Denis, when you, in your generation, because clearly you're of the younger generation, when you hear songs like Brown Skin Girl from Beyonce, and you're hearing about all this movement in terms of song and all these other platforms, and you have your two daughters, what would you tell your two little girls in terms of how they should prepare themselves for the world?
I think for me, one of the biggest things that I always try and encourage with my daughters is being your own person. So they're very different. My firstborn has long curly hair. The younger one has short hair. And, she'll try and insist on braiding it. And, she wants to be fancy with it. And I keep telling them that, look, you're two different people and no one in the world is the same. You have got to love who you are, accept who you are, and accept the people around you and celebrate being different. Find something that's unique about you and celebrate it. And I think if we can change our own narrative with the next generation that's there, I mean, for us, we grew up being told that we have to look a certain way and, look after yourself and the likes. But I think for the kids that are coming up now, it's really, really important for us to make sure that they're comfortable and comfortable in their own skin. And it's a fantastic movement. And, but again, social awareness with, the technology that's there now makes it a little bit more difficult because people now are filtering pictures. You can lighten your picture on the phones and the like. So it gets very confusing, but we need to build solid, confident, young adults that are coming up.
And this is why I love the fact that with the new generation, these upcoming guys, we didn't grow up with black dolls.
Yes.
I mean, like Barbie only introduced the black Barbie just in the past couple of decades.
Princess Tiana?
Exactly.
Yes.
All of these. And even if you look at cartoon characters, we're trying to really tell, get this, right? The Little Mermaid. Did you hear about this debacle? The Little Mermaid, the remake of it for 2019 was that it was supposed to be a black Little Mermaid. Oh, wow. And there was so much uproar around the fact that they had chosen a black person to represent the, Ariel, who was the Little Mermaid. And Hollywood, I think, really pushed back. But I think there is a conversation that's happening. Yeah. So what is it that we want to be communicating? What are the takeaways from this conversation that we need to empower someone out there? I think, let me just start the ball rolling for me. There's a song that I am so in love with called Mambo Kadzi. Sang by Amara Brown and Gemma Griffith. And for me, that just talks about being a queen and just being beautiful in your skin. And I think that is the start of the conversation. So it's about self-confidence. We've been speaking about it, but for me, that is the takeaway. We have got to be self-confident. No one can give that to you. And when you get it, no one can take it away. So for me, I think that's the conversation. But Until, what is that key message that you'd like to send out to people?
I think the key message that we all need to learn is that, beauty comes from within. And, if you're not beautiful inside, no matter what you look like externally, it doesn't show, it doesn't exude externally. So I think for me, that is one thing that we need to be teaching our children. And I think the issue of authenticity, God created me like, this way.
Amen.
And I am beautiful with all my flaws. I'm authentic. But I'm beautiful the way that I am. All of us, we look at ourselves and there's something that
change.
Would wish we could change, but
Absolutely. Auntie Jackie, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, I think also words of affirmation.
Yep.
So because people, the world is giving out these words and to people, you're ugly or whatever. But I think we have a responsibility to affirm our children and to point out the beautiful things that we see in them, or even not even in your children, in other children. For me, I changed when somebody told me that, oh my gosh, your skin is so beautiful. It's so dark and beautiful. I began to take a different look at myself. And I don't know who that was. I keep on saying it was an angel, because that completely began to make me think differently about my skin color.
And to love yourself.
And to love myself more.
So I want to just add on to that, because I think it's very, very important. Sorry about that. But I think that, we need to consciously be communicating positive messages, especially to children.
Yes.
You know, you find people who are so free to just say, oh my God, you've gone so fat. Oh my God, you're so dark. Let's just kind of like be sensitive to the impact that has.
That is a whole different episode until around just what people have to say and how we are projecting our own insecurities through what people say. Body shamers. Oh my goodness. It's like opening Pandora's box. Denise, what are your parting words?
Be your sister's keeper.
Yes.
I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, women, we can sometimes be each other's worst enemies. And that societal pressure, you know, you don't know what it does to someone. You don't know the level of confidence someone is carrying.
Exactly.
You know, your words can either make or destroy another human being. But let's celebrate one another where we can, you know, and encourage each other and make sure that people know that, you know, be confident. Like Auntie Lillian was saying, you know, authenticity is so important. You know, celebrate each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This brings us to the end of this program, but I must say, Sister Talk really for me is about the authentic conversations that will change or inspire people who are watching to get something, a couple of nuggets here and there from our conversations. So for all those who are watching Sister Talk, we are so excited that you continue to allow us into your rooms, into your spaces, to share these conversations. Feel free to give us your comments, join the conversation on Instagram, join the conversation on Facebook platforms. We love to hear from you. Until next time, from the sisters around the table, sayonara.